Hey guys, it's a new video and this week I'm back on my Marvel grind. With what at one point was my favourite Marvel film, Iron Man 3. This one, oh my gosh, it came out in 2013. It's the first film of Phase 2. Wait, is it Phase 2? It's the Infinity Saga? Phase 2 of the Infinity Saga? Honestly, the way that like it's all broken down confuses me a little bit. But it's definitely Phase 2 of the MCU, but I'm pretty sure it's Phase 2 of the Infinity Saga, which ends in Phase 3. Regardless, it holds a very special place in my heart. So this is Iron Man 3 is the first film I have like very vivid memories of watching for the first time, because I just remember it blowing my mind, like the entire thing, and like 13-year-old me watching this realised like, oh my gosh, I want to work in film. Like this was the film that sort of like cemented, oh my gosh, I know what I want to do with my life, you know? So again, put that in a very special place. The first thing I need to say, and it's very important to me, okay, is that technically, Iron Man 3 is a Christmas film. Therefore, it's a good watch for the whole year. I had to mention it. It's one of those things that I was like, it needs to be said. It's set during Christmas. There is a Christmas tree at some point. You hear Christmas music, therefore Christmas film. For me, Iron Man 3 gives the most rounded and honest version of Tony Stark in terms of the solo films, which I guess is what you'd hope by film 3. Like, obviously he gets developed more further down the line in the other films, but he's not actually like the main character in those films. Like obviously he's a main character, but there's other people there that also have to like have a bit of attention and everything, because he's not the main solo man after this, you know? I think as well it's good to acknowledge in Iron Man 3 that they show a real humanness of Tony Stark that we don't see, and we don't particularly see in any, like, we don't see sort of again, I guess, with other characters. Oh, I'm not wording this very well, but I mean, like in most of the films you see, oh, superhero, invincible, you know, so like nothing really touches them, nothing really phases them, but in Iron Man 3 we see Tony actually like struggling. Like it shows that he's not just brushing everything off. Like he's having to deal with what flying into space and almost dying. Like he deals with that. He has like anxiety attacks, he has PTSD, like, and we've not actually necessarily seen that so far. Off the top of my head, I can't think of another time we see that, not just with Tony, but like with other characters in the rest of Phase 2 and 3. And like there are definitely some characters that you're like, hang on a minute, you would definitely be a lot more messed up. Like, you know? I'm not explaining this point very well, I'm really sorry. But I think, but saying that, in Phase 4 and the like newest projects, there's definitely like, you see a lot more humanness. Like you get to see them as real people, you know, like they sort of strip away just the being a superhero and they're like, oh look, real people are involved with these superheroes. Another thing that I think is quite clever with Iron Man 3, and I have to be honest, I don't think I quite appreciated it in my first watch of the film, is the way that the character of the Mandarin is used, because it sort of reflects back on society in a way. The Mandarin is the face of the terrorist group that's sort of along the lines of what you would maybe say like the Taliban or ISIS or whatever, but then the way that it's actually a front for a white male American being responsible for all of it is like, oh, I mean, like, if that's a statement, if I ever did see one, it's like, oh, okay, we're getting real right now, you know? Like, that is definitely, and the way they just sort of like drop it and then they're like, deal with it, you know? Which I quite like. And I like the fact, okay, not to spoil anything, I will not spoil anything for Shang-Chi, but it does link to Shang-Chi. So, if you've not watched it, do it, do it. I saw that one in the cinema. I have one question, okay? I don't know if it's a question, it might be a bit of a qualm, but, okay, who on earth, who puts their house on the edge of a cliff, okay? Like, hanging over the edge. Like, I get the view must be incredible, but if that was me, I would feel so unsafe. How big the windows were, I would feel like I was about to like fall to my death any moment. I mean, I get it might just be a super rich person thing. I don't know, but I think, in my personal opinion, if his house had been not on the edge of a cliff, it wouldn't have been as, you know, chaotic when the house got shot up and blown up by the bad guys. Just something to think about. I mean, I guess as well it does also give the cool sequence for when the house all falls down and then he's in the water and everything, he's trapped a bit and everything's falling on him, but then his light shines bright again and Jarvis is like, take a deep breath, sir, and then grabs him and pulls him up. All that. You know? We wouldn't have got that, I suppose, if his house hadn't been on the edge of a cliff. But I just have an issue with it. Harley Keener is the blueprint, okay? He walked so that Peter Parker could run in terms of Tony Stark and his ability to be a mentor. And any scene Harley's in is honestly a gift. Specifically, this one cracks me up. I think about this one a lot, where the we're connected moment and the like snark that happens from that. That is just a gift to humanity. I thrive on that. Also, because we're on the topic of Harley Keener, if it didn't click initially when you watched Endgame, the boy you don't recognise in that scene, I'm not saying that to not spoil anything, I'm doing it because I don't like to acknowledge that scene, is Harley Keener, but he's obviously all grown up now. Along the lines with Harley Keener being in some of the best scenes, I just need to mention some incredible moments. I mean, while this whole film, in my opinion, is fantastic, some of my personal favourite scenes are... Okay, so this one's at the start, and it's when Tony's testing out his new suit, and he's like, Jarvis, drop my needle, and then he does his little... You know? And that whole sequence, phenomenal. It just brings me joy. It doesn't hurt that RDJ, he looks especially good. I mean, ooh. Another one is, this is nearer the end, to be fair, is when he's tied to the bed and he's like talking to the two that are watching him and he's like trying to figure out when his suit's gonna come and he keeps like counting down. He's like 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, like all of that, and they're like, ugh. That whole sequence, very good. The guy in that scene that's like, when he's like, Iron Man's got his hand out and he goes, honestly, I hate working here. They're so weird. I mean, it just tickles me every single time. Oh, and then the Barrel of Monkeys scene with the suit and the staff of the presidential plane and just the whole thing, and then the surprise truck. Oh, it's just very good. Really enjoy the very good balance of stress and banter. Every time, does not fail, doesn't miss. I mean, all in all, Iron Man 3 hits the right spots. I don't know if everyone will agree with me with that statement, but like, I think for the Iron Man franchise within the MCU, it took until the third film to understand Tony Stark's character and make him feel fully rounded. And I think that's just because his films and like the Iron Man franchise were the blueprint for how the trilogies like all work out. And like it was sort of like a uncharted territory, and then like figuring it out as they go along. Now, I mean, now they quite clearly have a formula and it's quite successful, but they didn't have that with the character of Tony Stark and the Iron Man films. So like, part of me is sort of like, oh, I wish he had more, because you get that vibe when you watch all of them together. You sort of see that Tony Stark, like the Iron Man is the experiment and the rest are the results, sort of like. Yeah, I just wish they had more time to show the character outside of being in a whole group. Like, I wanted more individual development from him, but I guess like he had his time. And I mean, it's not like he's lacking in the later Marvel films. Like, he makes quite a solid impact in the MCU overall. So, yeah, I mean, you get what you're given. You get what you're given. Okay, so I don't think anyone's going to question my ranking for this one. I've made it quite obvious. It's quite clearly going in. It's the vibe. And again, I mean, while it's not my top Marvel film anymore, it did stay there for a very long, like a good few years. I mean, like 5 years maybe. It's definitely still in my top 5. And it does hold a very special place in my heart, because I've always been Team Iron Man. And I mean, this film just does something. And it's a Christmas film. It is a Christmas film. And then along those lines, obviously, I think It Owns My Soul is quite an appropriate additional, as well as quality content, because, let's be honest, it's very good quality. And I think, as well, I'm going to go for Eyes Wide Open, because it does sort of give you a different insight into, like, Tony Stark. And the scene at the end where Harley walks into his garage and it's been proper, like, decked up and jazzed up and modified by Tony is the perfect representation of how I feel about this film. You know, just the, like, wide-eyed wonder. So, yeah. It's all wrapped up in a nice bow, I suppose. Yeah, I thought it was time to bring back the Marvel series, because they've been bringing out some really good stuff. And like, how many more? There's already 2 films been out, released this year, and then there's still 2 more to be released, and then it's meant to be like 4 every year for the next however. Oh, I've got to catch up, guys. I've got to roll these videos out. And I think I've now figured out the formula, my formula for how I want to talk about Marvel films, because like before, that was me still just trying to figure it out. I think my little break from doing videos sort of like cleared my mind, and I gained some skills, so I know I'm doing better now, and I know the aim of what I'm wanting from things. That's it for this week. I will see you in the next one. Bye. My back needs to crack. Oh, what does he say? Anyway. Oh, sounded like an owl.